there, and welcome to GovConHacks. I'm your host, Ashley Duell, and Hey, y'all, I don't know what happened there, but welcome. Happy Thursday.
Hi, everybody.
You know who we are now, so if you're
Sure.
new here, this is the place where we break down government contracting and business and try to make it all make sense for you. So tonight's episode I'm excited about. It's all about the GSA schedule.
Yes.
What it really does for you, why it's important right now, and most importantly, a little later, we'll talk about how you get on it, right?
Yep.
So one thing that people don't really realize about the GSA schedule is, we hear all this talk about contract vehicles. The government, do you have a vehicle that we can buy from you on? Or, what they're talking about is one of many vehicles, but the GSA schedule, I feel like it's a little special. And the reason I say that is because it's one of the only ones that you can onboard onto at any time. You don't have to wait for a solicitation to come around.
Nope.
Solicitation lives on SAM. So
Right.
we are going to take a look at everything that we have time for today. Got some screens to share. But the most important question is, what's so important about this thing? How does it simplify and accelerate government purchasing? Why is it favored by the government? Because in a lot of agencies' supplemental rules, in some cases, like software is one that's very common. In their supplemental rules, they might say, for any software procurements, if it's available on GSA, you have to buy there first. And that's just one example in simple terms. But it does prevent that agency from being able to buy from a lot of small business contractors if they haven't gone through this process. So a little bit on category management. I'm going to change our view right here. So category management, and my screen's over here, so I'm not like ignoring you guys, but I've got two screens. So that's the practice of buying common goods and services as an organized enterprise in order to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of acquisition activities. So it helps organizations buy smarter for product, service, and solutions, thinking the things they buy every single day, right? Toilet paper, office supplies, off-the-shelf
Solutions,
right? Even pharmaceuticals, medical supplies. So we're going to get into what all categories are covered under GSA in a moment. But to make a long story short on the how, it is a simplified method of purchase. So if I'm the contracting officer and I've got a choice to make, I go through this lengthy acquisition process. I have to create the acquisition. I have to compete it on SAM, or I can choose from vendors with pre-negotiated pricing by issuing an RFQ to eBuy and having eligible vendors respond. So for me as the government, that shortens my time to get my needs met, right? And this administration, they're all about moving toward category management. So we've already seen
everyone's moving it, right? Like, well, for the most part, for the easier things, I would think like hot solutions, things that you can buy every day that don't really require too much customization. Everything is going to be slowly being piled onto the GSA, which is, I would say, a good thing, but also it makes me nervous because I'm curious to see how that process is going to work. Is it going to make it slower? Because that's the great benefit of the GSA. That's why you pay, so much money to get on the GSA is you are skipping essentially profitability for, quick and easy access. So quicker wins. You almost get to like skip the whole process of trying to reach out to certain buyers. You can literally have your own products brochured right here on this platform and help your agencies buy through those schedules.
Now, somebody that wants to sell you a GSA schedule may tell you that you have to have one to do business with the government. And today, as of May 15th, 2025, that is still not necessarily true, right? So the government does still have options, but I do expect more and more opportunities to be headed toward eBuy, given the shifts that we're seeing in the administration. So if you are in an industry like IT or like COT, and you do not yet have a schedule, it's not a bad idea. And I have to change my advice this year too on this, because normally I would have said if the data shows that the government buys from a GSA schedule, then it would make sense. I'd always do market research first. This is the first time I've ever had to really sway from that advice. So
Yeah.
GSA
Now
schedule,
it's a good idea this
it
year.
is. It definitely is. And at the end of the day, it's about speed and simplicity for the
Mhm.
government. So for the next 4 years at least, it's, you might be taking lesser profit, but it will lead to more longer term revenue for sustainability. All right, so we're going to talk about the multiple award schedule categories and subcategories. So these are the main categories, and the GSA schedule went through this massive overhaul some years back to where they used to have this very complicated sort of SIN numbering system, and they've since simplified it to what they're referring to now as category management. So you have your facility support, you have your furniture and furnishings, human capital, industrial products and services, IT, miscellaneous office management, professional services, scientific management solutions, security and protection, transportation and logistics, and travel. So in and around there, there's also, language and translation, I believe, is in one of these categories as well. So they do get deeper. But let's just, we'll just click on one and see where it takes us. And this is exactly how you guys will do your own research if you're kind of trying to figure out which item number you need to be in. And I will say, moving on, that brings us, it's a nice segue into our next topic, common pitfalls. So common pitfalls are putting yourself in the wrong sin, right? Because for every sin that you put yourself in, with the
Or
exception
your consultant.
or your consultant, right? So if you have zero experience and you say, I do healthcare staffing,
Mhm.
well, the way that the healthcare staffing is set up in GSA is you have to provide 2 instances of recent past performance. So they
Explain
might put
recent.
you instead of, what's that?
Explain recent.
I believe it's within 2 years, or I can't
Okay.
remember exactly what
Like
it's
the
offer.
usually it's like the 3-year, like the recency type of thing?
Maybe
Okay.
it's 2 within 3 years.
Okay. All right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a government project, but in some SINs, you're not necessarily able to get on the GSA schedule without having any experience,
Okay.
with the exception of IT.
Got it.
So if you're in IT, they will even accept, in many cases, your professional experience. So
Oh,
experience that you had in the industry prior to even starting your business.
didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty cool. And
Cool.
it's part of the fast lane. We'll talk about that in a
Hmm.
minute. But in IT, for example, contractors have a hard time identifying, wait, do I do solutions, services, software? And this is sort of where it would make sense to utilize a consultant. If you're unsure of what SINs you fall into, because here's the here's the worst case scenario. You go through all this, you submit everything, you get your GSA schedule award, and you see no bids. No bids. Because once you have a GSA schedule in a certain category, you're only seeing the opportunities that are put into that SIN.
Right.
So if one buyer in Idaho buys it under 54151S and this guy buys it under temporary help services, you might need 2 SINs to accommodate those different buyers. So that is where the level of market research is super important, even in this quarter. But hopefully I haven't lost anybody here. I can't wait to hear you guys' questions. Be sure to drop them in the chat. But we've got a lot more ground to cover here. So do you have any questions, Natasha? Otherwise,
I
I'm
have a million, but keep going, girl.
all right. So first step, identifying the right SIN. That is the
Yes.
most important
I
part.
think I have like 7 clients right now that are just like, I don't see anything. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure you have the wrong SIN. How do you
That's 9 times
know? How do you double check? Let's assume even if you pay for a consultant, because we're finding that people are claiming they can do GSA, but they get you on the GSA and they got you on the wrong SIN. How do you prepare and educate yourself and double check your SIN? How do you even know where to look?
So
I
GSA
and
sales query.
since you were mentioning healthcare staffing, let's use that as an example.
Well, d2d.gsa.gov. I'm not going to completely go through it, but this portal is one of a few portals. So within here, there's also GSA sales query. And I can't remember what the URL changed to. Let's see.
You guys better be writing this down.
There it is. So the sales query plus will give you analysis. And this is part of your first step. So Natasha's jumping a little bit ahead because in order to get on a schedule, you very well have to attest that you have completed all the steps in the process to include the Pathways to Success training. That training is going to take you through sales query to have you look for your products and services, because it's no secret that more than half of the companies that get on the GSA schedule, zero sales.
Yeah.
But a lot of companies also, in their defense, have probably been called out of the blue, told they needed one, got put in the wrong sin. So they didn't have a fighting chance to get the sales, right? It really only comes in those cases through conversations with buyers when, you're negotiating and they're asking, how can I buy from you? So if you're a contractor that, got on a GSA schedule for a Hail Mary because you weren't getting any business off of the schedule, chances are this isn't going to save you, right? Because you do still have to market. You do still have to BD. You do still have to increase the sales on that schedule. So it is a long-term contract with the government, but it doesn't mean that when you get that award that the clouds are going to part and the contracts are going to fall from the sky. It's not the way it works in any world, really, in government contracting. But when you get that schedule, I always say best practice is follow up with all of your leads. Let them know that your schedule is pending. The moment you hit that submit button, let them know, your current customers, that they're going to have a new way to buy from you. And then when you do get the award, send them the schedule information, the schedule number, the link to your catalog, and eBuy. But let me get back to where I was, which is going to be the how. And the how is quite extensive. So we're probably going to spend a lot of time on this. Let me go ahead and change my banner here. I need to hire someone to run this thing for me eventually. You know that? If you guys know anyone, send them my way. All right. So this roadmap, and to be quite honest, you can quite literally Google GSA space MAS space roadmap and get to this page. Anytime you Google the words GSA schedule, you will get inundated with every sponsored person that's trying to get you to pay them to do your GSA schedule. Be aware that the process is free, but it will cost you time, and it is considerably not the easiest to navigate. So the first step is deciding if it's in your best interest, right? So if you're in one of the categories that we've already talked about, IT, COTS, it is in your best interest. Medical products, pharmaceuticals, it definitely is. Here's the Pathways to Success training. I'm not going to go through all of this training because that is your due diligence. But even if you are paying someone to complete this for you, do yourself a solid and review the training. You need to know when you sign on the dotted line what you're getting into, right? You need to know how to use this schedule. All right, so there have been talks recently, though I see it still here, so it hasn't quite changed yet. But there have been rumbles about removing socioeconomic categories from the mass schedule program. So if that happens, it will just be a case of small versus other than small. So even playing field a little bit. Even if your company is more than 2 years old, you can still qualify for the startup springboard if you have 2 years of corporate experience providing the products or services described in the mass solicitation. This is what you may substitute if you lack past performance. Your readiness assessment. Yes, you must complete that. And here ladies and gents, is the mass solicitation. Now, the solicitation does get refreshed often. So you can be in mid-application process and you'll log in and the flash will come up and it'll say, hey, the solicitation's been refreshed. Click here to acknowledge. And they will have added extra stuff for you to do and go back and complete. So it is not necessarily a quick process. It has taken, and depending on the schedule and how many SIN categories you have, like I helped one client with he had one product on his GSA schedule in medical supplies. So it was actually the VA's 65-2, and it was the easiest schedule under the sun. Then I have another client who is labor categories. So GCA compliance is definitely a thing here, and those labor categories, oh my gosh, makes my head spin. So it can be easy, it can be very long and painful. It really depends on your core competencies and what you do. You don't necessarily have to put everything you do on a GSA schedule either, because you will be able to submit modifications later and add extra items. So I would start with, your best seller, essentially. If there's a fit for it on the GSA, start there. Here's the new offer checklist, and we are going to actually go through this a little bit and it was just updated in January. Where's it opening here? Let me reshare. We're going to have to share a different screen here. Here it is. All right. This is your new offer checklist.
Oh, wow.
Yes. This is essentially for you to use to keep track of as you're going through the steps. Now, we'll show you the templates in a moment, but as you can see, you have the checklist and then you have your sort of categories, right? You don't necessarily need to worry about the office management category if you're not submitting an office management schedule, right? So keep that definitely in mind. Furniture, obviously, you don't need to put furniture if you're not going for a furniture schedule. So they're not necessarily all applicable, but this master list, everybody does have to submit. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. You know where to find it now, so you can review that as needed. All right, next thing is back to our checklist or our roadmap. There it is. All right, so you'll complete the required registration. So the only real prerequisite to the GSA schedule is to be registered in sam.gov and have a CAGE code. So you'll need your UEI and your CAGE code. The experience aside, it is the only registration that you need to have, aside from obviously the prerequisites to SAM. You'll need also an e-offer account, but I recommend preparing your package before you even get in there. We do have templates and such available to our clients. If you would like assistance filling some of this stuff out, it kind of has the same information that's in e-offer that you could use as a guide in a Word document, kind of very fill in the blank, if you will. But nonetheless, you can do it on your own as well, because here are all of the templates. So when you click on the required templates, this is where the fun begins. This is where I say, okay, Natasha, it's your turn.
That's the only template I like.
This is your price proposal for products, your price proposal for services and training.
All right.
And then the following SINs require you to use very specific price proposal templates. So translation, interpretation, linguistic training, and education are both on the same template. Employee relocation, long-term lodging, so on and so forth. Pricing terms required for everybody. So very much fill in the blank. Agent authorization letter. It's required if you're using a third-party agent to assist you. So if you've hired a third-party consultant and you want them to be able to act and negotiate on your behalf, you would need to have that completed for them. Past perform. Now, hold on. Before we go any further, there's a cautionary that I forgot to mention, because I have helped more clients than I care to even admit retrieve their GSA schedule back from somebody that they had paid in the past that only put themselves as an authorized negotiator. If you
yes.
Yes, this is even worse than a hijack SAM registration, because there's a process for getting your SAM back. But good luck getting that GSA schedule back. So look, guys, don't let your third party create the account for you. You always just assign them as an agent, essentially, to negotiate, but you own the account. That way, once you've created the account, you get in there, you do what you need to do, assign them authorization so that they can then access the account. It's literally one of the first questions. So don't let them hijack the process and then you not be able to do anything like submit a modification without paying that third party. So definitely not the most ethical business practices that I've seen on this topic. There was actually a company here in Florida that was shut down because they were doing some shady stuff. So just because the process exists doesn't mean that somebody that knows the industry is executing it. So just do your due diligence if you're planning on hiring a consultant. All right, past performance questionnaire. This is you can read more about that in the technical proposal section of the solicitation. But the customer reference, if you get the customer reference in a different format, it must have exactly the same information. So this is actually for your customer to fill out. Letter of supply. So this is if you're adding someone else's product, right? So if I am reselling a large manufacturer's product, I would need to get a letter of supply from that manufacturer stating, such and such. If I were to get the award, that they're going to make sure that quantity is available.
Got it.
Doesn't apply to everybody, but if it does apply, make sure that you submit it. Request to hold continuous contracts. That one's actually new. I think I haven't, or I haven't had to use it yet. Oh, existing mass contractor, and you want to follow on. Okay. Joint venture solicitation attachment. That's not really going to apply to a whole lot of you, probably, but this is one thing that if you are in a joint venture, the joint venture only lasts 2 years. So if you're able to get a GSA schedule under that joint venture in those 2 years, and it might take every bit of that 2 years, might I add, so start it immediately. That is considered the base award. So any task order under the duration of that contract is still valid, even though the joint venture can no longer actively compete on other contracts. So that's definitely a good strategic move that not a lot are aware of. Single-use plastic-free packaging. This one was in, I think, 2 updates ago. That came. Everybody has to attest to it in e-offer, but it's a basically stating that you're not going to use this, and this to package their stuff. Commercial sales practices format, subcontracting plan model, if applicable, individual subcontracting plan model, and then here are the other things. So financial statements. Previous 2 years, audited if available. Do not submit something that's not in generally accepted accounting principles. They won't even look at it, guys. Same with 8A, like same rules apply here. It must be in the correct format. Explain anything.
Put it in QuickBooks.
Yep.
Take it out of your Excel sheet. Take it out of your notebook and put it in QuickBooks. We also do bookkeeping.
Technical proposal. If there's anything in your financials that could negatively reflect on your business, be sure to explain that. And then, if you are new and you don't have 2 years of financial statements, here is the other information that you can provide. Technical proposal. This is in section 2 of the solicitation. Specific factors 1, 3, and 4 must be completed. 10,000 character limit, narrative in e-offer. They will not consider uploaded documents. So little trick here, guys. Draft it all in like your Word or Google Doc in accordance. make sure it meets the character limit, and then you can just copy and paste once you get into the system. Professional compensation plan. Previous notification of determination not to exercise an option letter. So if you had a previous mass contract that was canceled. So that is, let me clarify, that used to happen a lot, right? So they were very strict at one time about the $25,000 threshold.
Oh
So
yeah, like
the
yearly.
rule stated $25,000 you had to have in sales each year for your first 2 years, or they were going to kick you off.
Right.
And when I tell you that contractors used to get kicked off left and right, it happened. It definitely happened. I don't see it as often anymore, but keep me honest here. If there's Murphy's Law says someone's in
Well,
the
they just, I mean, we will say in honesty, lately, I don't know what they're gonna do going forward, but
yeah.
lately they have been they did a mass kickoff, and that was because there were a lot of people with schedules that hadn't touched it in years.
Yeah. Because they were so laxed probably last time.
Yeah, they got a little too laxed.
Yeah.
So they did, they cleaned it out.
That's the thing. It is a very much use it or lose it situation. Like, because think about all the time that's been evaluating your offer, negotiating with you and your pricing terms, any opportunity that you submit thereafter, cost acquisition time. So if you are not winning, maybe it's your price, maybe it's something else that's outside of their control. They're not necessarily willing to keep you in that pool of bidders, right? So not everything's lowest price. Granted, in a lot of cases here, it might be but it is pre-negotiated pricing, so it would depend on the solicitation. CSP, so transactional. Oh, you can opt out to participate in the transactional reporting. I have heard that the reporting it adds a lot of admin time onto your process, and it is the opinion of some that the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's kind of optional. So why put more work on yourself if you don't have to, is how a lot of folks think about it. That is not necessarily my opinion, but do your own due diligence and make that decision for yourself.
Like 5 seconds. If it sounds boring and you're falling asleep, just let it go.
Yeah, it sounds like a snooze fest to me. I'm just saying.
That's most of this is.
So commercial price list and market rate sheet. This one, surprisingly, like nobody has.
Really?
It's crazy. And then I get also the reverse. There's the contractor that has charged $35 an hour to everybody for the last 10 years, but to the government, they want to charge 75. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to provide invoices for your past performance. Like, you're going to have to provide scopes of work. You're going to have to provide supporting evidence to the claims that you make.
Right.
So don't dig yourself in a hole. This is, again, not a high profit approach.
Well, I have a question. Somebody asked me this the other day, and now I just need some clarity. When you are pulling together your commercial price list, it's based on what you have. Like, we'll use labor categories because it's just what's in my head right now, but labor categories. Let's assume that you had a software developer level 1, and you've always priced around, let's say, $70 an hour burden cost, right? You have a variance, 3 different variances. You have one that's 67, one is 70, one is 80. What do you choose an average? Can you choose your lowest? Can you choose your highest? Or do you have to choose your lowest? Like, how do you choose? What if you do software development all the time and that's your FTE and you have a million contracts and situational, places where you can pull that data from? So how do you put it in your price list and then use that to justify your costs? And how can you use that to your advantage?
The first thing I'll say is, before you even put any pricing in GSA, go here to GSA Calc and prove that your current price is fair and reasonable. Because if I put in the education, because there are a lot of factors that go into that deviation, experience, education level. I mean, think differentiators, right? I might have a PhD with 25 years of experience for 275 an hour, whereas yours might be fresh out of school for a buck 25, or I'm just throwing numbers out there.
Yeah.
So when you would use it would kind of be on a case by case basis. But here's the thing is when you're getting on a mass schedule and you're submitting your pricing to GSA, you're saying that this is the rate we charge for this labor category. So if you do this research and you determine that your rate is too low or too high, then I would recommend making the adjustments,
Mhm.
executing twice and using that as the new norm, right? Because we do sometimes have to make corrections, especially, we have to sometimes offer our stuff a different way to fit inside the government's little box, if
Fair
you
enough.
will. So
So it doesn't
if
always have to be historics. You can, you can show that, this
if
is
you
what it
can
actually
justify
is.
it, right. But if you come in here and you put in the criteria and the price that you're asking for, like, because the government has to justify that your price is fair and reasonable when they award you a contract.
Mhm.
That's why I scratch my head at these people telling y'all to double your price and then submit that to the government as if there's not already, protocols in place to prevent that from being a thing. But nonetheless, that's another story for another day. So my guy doesn't have a security clearance. You said it was an IT person, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
this would be happening on SIN category 54151S, more than likely. Here we go.
Nice.
We are a small business. We don't have a security clearance. Let's say this person has 7 to 10 years, 7 to 12. We're just going to look at all the prices. Current contract year, and the category is information technology. This is what we can expect, right? So here's the graph. It's all over the place, you see.
Uh,
Um, you have everything from 74.33 all the way up to 137.09. So now we have to kind of dig a little bit deeper to see, which level. You said tech. What was the role that you gave me?
software development or developer level 1, let's say.
Right.
Well, you chose what, 7, 8 years is probably more of a level 3 at that point.
Oh, well, let's reduce that then.
Yeah, because if he's level 1, he's 1 to 2 years max.
Okay, there we go. So technical assistant, office automation, you can expect to pay 46.27 an hour. This is the company. So it's using historical data, and providing you with a source. Now, one thing you guys should also know, once you get on a GSA schedule, your terms, conditions, and pricing becomes public for all of us to see. So
Yeah.
I have had folks decide not to proceed because they did not want to disclose that type of information.
Right.
But by the same token, you can also go research your competitors' pricing. Right?
Right.
So if you want to go see what Alpha or Torch or Millennium is charging and what all they're providing, it's publicly available information in GSA elibrary.gsa.gov. So this is how, and using historical data is one way that the government determines price, cost, fair, and reasonableness. So by following the same process, you're sure to get the same information as they will be getting in their research, which sure beats the likes of Google in this respect. Also, geography does matter, right? So if I'm paying an IT specialist level 1 in Atlanta, I'm probably going to have to pay them a little more than an IT level 1 in Des Moines, Iowa. Just as an example. I don't know that to be sure. I'm just
But it's
throwing.
going to be less than someone that's in Washington, D.C.
Right. Exactly.
And in
So
many cases, when you don't know, and this is just a rule of thumb, when you do not know what location, and it says something of like various locations, we always choose the highest. So Washington, D.C. it is.
yeah. So back to our. All right, we're almost done here. Pricing support documentation. So they're just not going to let you get away with saying, "Oh, here's my price."
Yep.
They're going to want to know, instances and also discounts. So they want the price of your most favored client. So if I'm giving Natasha 75 bucks an hour, I'm going to have to give the government 75 bucks an hour.
Plus
So it makes sense to put in writing your discount policies if any of those instances exist in your recent invoices or you're going to be utilizing for past performance. Make sure there's a clear relevant relationship between your supporting document and then if you provide a CSP1, you need to demonstrate that the pricing is same or better than what you currently offer. That's not going to apply to most people that are on the
Yeah.
webinar today. So not going to get into what to do if you had a GSA schedule. Learning how to use a GSA schedule is a webinar it's a whole separate topic of its own. How to
And maybe
market your
another
schedule,
day.
sales strategies and tactics. But I do want to make sure that we open it up for Q&A so that anyone in the audience maybe have the opportunity to ask some specific questions, maybe as it relates to their industry or anything that they might have learned or want to learn about the process. I know we went through it rather quick. Trust me, there's several more.
Share all the sites that you went to in the, maybe not necessarily just the comments, and maybe in the YouTube.
Yeah, I can share it I can put it in the description when I edit the episode, but let me pop them in the chat for everyone now. Here's if you have the roadmap, you can pretty much get to everything else. So here's your GSA Mass roadmap.
And just as an FYI to people that don't understand why it's so expensive to do GSA, it's very time consuming.
Very.
But I always tell people knowledge is power. And if you can do it yourself, give it a good try. And if you find that you're struggling, then find yourself some help.
Yes, it definitely is a whole lot more financially feasible to pay for facilitation of a process, an expert, whether it's us or someone else who's familiar with the process, than to have them do it for you. Because by removing you from the process, there's an element of risk there that it feels like it's eliminating accountability, but at the end of the day, when the hammer comes down, it's not going to come down on them. It's going to come down on you as the business owner who signed on the dotted line. So facilitation is the way that I would go. Actually, the way that I did decide to go when I was going to be doing my GSA schedule. However, and that was just really to take some of the administrative burden off because, look, let's face it, we all have more of something. Either we have more time than we do money, or we have more money than we do time. So just be realistic. It is definitely recommended if you are in IT, if you sell software, if you represent manufacturers, if you sell COTS products, if you are gear, equipment of any sort, like anything, that can be bought at Walmart, GSA schedule is the way to go. Furthermore, if you are not interested in GSA, let's say that you do sell products, but this might be too much for you for a maybe, right? There's also Amazon. So let's not forget that Amazon has opened up Amazon Business and they have the socioeconomic designation. So the government can quite literally go to Amazon, put in women-owned small business for a pair of boots and buy from your Amazon store in a very simplified method, think procurement card. Right? So that's even easier of a capture than a GSA schedule, the way that Amazon has that built up. So let us know if you guys have any questions. Any questions from the audience?
I think you gave them so much. They're all on the roadmap now. I know I am.
Oh, here is also the pricing calculator. Let me give you guys that one too. GSA Calc pricing tool. These comments will help me later to edit the description. That was a lot of information. I can't believe you guys have 0 questions. I don't even really buy it, to be honest.
I bought all the questions. I was like, what's this? What's
I know
this?
you did ask all the questions. What industry are y'all in?
GSA calc pricing tool. Ooh. By GSA.gov pricing.
Oh, and there's 2 screens I didn't even get to that I had up here. One of which was to show you something completely different to blow your minds, because the VA, they buy a lot of medical supplies. They buy a lot of pharmaceuticals, right? The VA has their own, it's the schedule 65-1 and 65-2.
Oh, let's see.
All right. Let's see. Let me turn share screen. Here's 65-1. B for drugs, pharmaceuticals, and hematology.
Okay, all right.
Have 65-2. This is for medical equipment and supplies. Now, this one I found was a whole lot easier. Like, even the pricing sheet was easier. But these are the special item numbers for this stuff. It's a little bit different.
Ooh. Tiffany says she's in transportation. How does GSA help transportation?
So look, going back to the category management. Whoops, that's not the right one. Let me get it back up here. 1 second. Transportation has its own category. So right here, transportation and logistics services. Now, this is one reason, ladies and gents, why you people in transportation don't find a whole lot of solicitations open on sam.gov. You'll find your courier, a couple of one-offs.
Yeah.
Have some disaster relief stuff, but by and large, there's not a whole lot of open solicitations, because a lot of package delivery and transportation of things is procured. Those solicitations go through eBuy. So here's, like, if you're a courier, I love how they call it transportation of things.
Transportation
Can we sit on that for a moment?
A lot of stuff.
I love it. So,
there goes your Oasis. Oh, the hub, sorry.
No, those are the different categories for Oasis.
STVSB.
I was today years old when I learned that transportation is bought on Oasis. Interesting. I knew it was bought on a GSA schedule, but didn't know it was necessarily Oasis. So a little backstory on Oasis. Oasis is a long-term contract vehicle that essentially comes after you get a GSA schedule. So the incumbents on the Oasis are a pool of contractors, pre-approved contractors in various pools that have a long-term contract that basically a prerequisite to even bid on it was to already have to be a GSA schedule holder. So in the grand scheme of order of operations, you got SAM, GSA schedule, Oasis, or something comparable to Oasis. There are contract vehicles out there that are only open to GSA schedule holders, which we'll never see the light of day on unless you have an eBuy account.
Yep.
In the relevant SIN, might I add. So this is, well, that was very scant information, I have to say. I was very underwhelmed with what they have here as far as the transportation and logistics.
And that's where we go with the whole needing a consultant. Because it's
here we go.
You can spend a good amount of time just looking. And if you don't know where to look, oh, Lord of mercy. Transportation.
There you go.
Vehicle leasing, vehicle purchasing, and short-term rentals. Fed fleet, like that.
You're right. Oh, that one ended too. That link was way too long. All right, we got vehicle leasing, vehicle purchasing, short-term rentals, freight management program, transportation and logistics, and TMSS 2.0.
I like that.
The Fed fleet is a unique educational experience. Assembles fleet management professionals, week of training. Interesting. I never heard of Fed fleet before.
Yeah, that must be new.
Here's all your transportation programs at GSA.gov. This is probably the solicitation for the TMSS2. But this is it's a bear of a process, but just
End-to-end transportation, warehousing and storage. You have supplier selection process and invoicing and vendor payments.
Yep.
So there's quite a bit.
Yep, you got courier here too.
Bus services, so plenty to go off of. Elijah says, what about speech language and language pathology?
Actually, funny you asked that. I was just doing a market research report for a client and had to eliminate some language. It was speech therapy, I believe. I would look up speech therapy and all of the different ways that one might be able to refer to speech therapy and look that up in USA spending. I don't know that that is something provided under the GSA or something that is relevant to the GSA schedule. I see that more often purchased on a one-off, and VA is probably going to be a first step. I'd definitely hit up VA. Also, state departments of health and human services would probably be another target just off the top of my head. I wish I could remember.
What about a human capital for health as a non-clinical, maybe?
Wait, what was your question?
What about a non-clinical, like healthcare staffing situation?
Healthcare staffing is
It's kind of healthcare, but it's not. It's like a non-clinical healthcare.
Right. So healthcare staffing is basically temporary help.
Yeah.
And under temporary help, you're going to have everything from like admin support to nursing, right?
Right.
I don't know. And a lot of healthcare staffing companies struggle with if they don't work nationwide, first of all.
Right.
They have very weird nuances in their go, no-go analysis. So for example, stay away from anything that requires a physician. Well, what you have the government doing right now is they're bundling a whole bunch of stuff. So it'll be physical therapy, speech therapy, nursing, and case management all in this one contract. Right. So like an Elijah or an Ashley wouldn't be able to tackle it alone, but as a team with partners. So pay attention not only to the titles of the opportunities, guys, but pay attention to the scopes that are coming down right now, because you might see that it might be funneled under what's one I came across. We actually went over this last week. It was under like educational support services, and it was basically training, consulting, and like a whole bunch of things bundled into one. So don't be looking for opportunities by NAICS right now. It's useless. Do keyword searches. Make sure that you know health and wellness. So it kind of depends on what kind of health and wellness. Like if we're talking about home health care. But if we're talking about like, shoot, I have one client's a yoga instructor. Health and wellness, that could go so
health and wellness is huge. I just found like 8 opportunities this morning for health and wellness. Well, for
one way, shape, or form. There's everything from health and wellness, like cohort, like group stuff, to health and wellness, like IPP programs, or those employee programs for health and wellness. It's all over the place. All right. What if a prime added me to their e-buy? I can see solicitations, but I assume I can't bid on them. So if a prime adds you to their e-buy, yes, you can see. But you are not eligible to bid without that schedule. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to submit an offer as prime.
Okay.
And as a consultant, that would be rather unethical. I don't know if that's what you're doing or not, but I certainly would not be using my client's eBuy account to bid on something for myself.
I do have a question about that though. If you decide to partner, does your subcontractor have to have a schedule under the GSA, or does just the prime?
The prime has to have the schedule. So if you're the subcontractor, you're probably going to be completing one of those agent authorization letters of supply. So if you're the sub and you're providing the service to the prime, you are essentially reselling your stuff through their GSA schedule.
Okay.
So you aren't doing the bidding, but in most cases, they're taking your pricing, they're marking it up a little bit, and they're selling it direct to the government. I have to say, everybody here knows that I'm a huge fan of subcontracting. It's a whole lot less work that way. You give them a little bit of discount, let them do the sales work, guys. I mean, at the end of the day,
From that one
be
prime.
realistic about your resources. You don't necessarily need a GSA schedule if you have partners that have one. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Partner.
right. If you're capturing the business one way or another, does it really mean that you should or have to go through the process? Also, if you are reselling your stuff on a GSA schedule through someone else, you getting on a schedule yourself may be a direct conflict of interest with your agreement. You're essentially now bidding against your teaming partner.
That is a good point.
Which means that you have a little bit of unnecessary control over the market if you're undercutting their pricing. So that can get into a hairy situation. Check your agreements, talk to your lawyers. I'm not involved in that.
Mhm.
Let's see, who do we have next? Providing premium salads for individuals with chronic illnesses. So there are a lot of programs at the state level that provide care for seniors. I would also look into, like, here's the thing is any nursing home, any rehabilitation center, any place, like they would need to make the decision, and it needs to be allowable in their budget. So I can't see the federal government necessarily buying. That wouldn't be something I'd put on a GSA schedule. No. That
No.
would be something that I would do a good grassroots sales strategy for and execute, starting with federally funded agencies like those that I mentioned. That's what I would
And
do.
federal grants. You should consider that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Grants might be an option, but definitely local run programs that operate on county, state, or federal funds would ultimately be the ones to be able to make the decision. And what that means is, I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad news, but you're not going to see any solicitations for it. But the good news is it's a shorter sales process because you don't have to wait for a solicitation. Now, who
Right.
can you sell that to? If I presented it to anybody, I might get advocacy at the VA if they have veterans with chronic illnesses. But remember to position your presentation to your targeted audience, right?
Right.
Do a little bit of research on the veterans with chronic illnesses and what they struggle with and speak directly to that. Don't just give a blanket sales pitch in that case. But that's interesting. I like what you're doing there, Latasha.
Mhm.
All right. All right, guys. Any other questions for us this evening? You're very welcome. Thank you for your participation. I know that was a lot of information. I tried to shorten it to where we could get through it in 30 minutes and take some questions. So appreciate you all sticking in there with us. But
Yeah.
we have some additional content, some scheduled content coming up. So next week we will not necessarily be live, but Natasha, tell them about what you're putting out next week at 7 p.m.
All right. So you guys are going to do what you want anyway. So we're going to help you do it the best way possible. So you're going to write your proposals in ChatGPT, right? Okay, cool. I'm going to help you. We're going to go over how we're going to use ChatGPT to review your solicitation, create your outline, help you with compliance, help you put together data calls, come up with market research. You also get a cheat sheet on prompts that you can use to make you a better proposal manager / proposal writer for yourself, and ChatGPT as your dope assistant. And then we will learn about some prompts to help you create good executive summaries, not just the boilerplate ones that you guys are using. We're going to use ChatGPT to help you make graphics, and we're going to help you understand how to use the prompts so that you can go ahead and come up with better solutioning, past performance, scope of work, and address your management and staffing. And overall, even support developing your pricing. So we're going to go We're going to try to get as much as we can because it's only an hour, but it's going to be very high level. But I'm going to give you a cheat sheet and give you at least something to run with so that it's not just 10 pages of, bullet point lists, which I've seen. I've seen it and I cry every time. So we're gonna work on making you look like you
Always with the bold heading and then the colon and then this cheesy explanation afterwards.
right. I mean, like there's highlights everywhere, and I'm like, I'm just grateful you didn't put the little pictures anymore. But ultimately, like we're gonna teach you how to do it like a professional, so that it looks like you paid me to do it.
Sounds good. Hey, I'm there for that. I might show up live just to watch.
Oh, you got to be there because I don't like to do without you.
Did you schedule it?
I think we're leaving that to you because I don't know how to do that stuff.
I will help
I
you
created the picture.
out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be sure so that you don't miss that. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, tap the bell for notifications. It's some stupid number, like 70% of you that watch us are not even subscribed to the channel, and that just it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart.
I'm here. You should be here.
heart.
Oh, we're friends.
When is that? So that is going to be the AI training is going to be next week, same time, same place. So Thursday at 7. It is a pre-recorded training, but we're still going to show up here and take your questions and stuff at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we'll just run it as a watch party. Want to do that?
Yeah, I'm cool with that too. And if you guys want to ask questions, I'll be there to judge myself and look at myself. That'll be fun.
And I'll be there to make fun of you in the private chat and poke at you.
Lashes will look better that day.
Isn't that left eyelash crooked?
Yeah, I'll be like, damn it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for all your questions. I hope this was helpful to you and that these resources will keep you motivated in getting through the process. If you have any questions, as always, you know where to find us. We're never far away. So have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.